Okay, guys, today we have on longtime friend, Ethan Marcus, who is the founder and CEO too, right? To be clear?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Founder and CEO of Flashnet. There's a bit of backstory here. First of all, I should clarify or disclose I am an investor, so get that out of the way. The other thing is that I have known these guys for a very long time. We've been wanting to do this. Also, the interesting part, hopefully, which we'll get into, is that I originally knew them as a team that was trying to do effectively trading on Lightning in a very interesting way that turned out to be, as you can probably imagine, exceedingly complicated. So we'll get into that at some point as well. But Ethan, welcome. Thank you for coming on. Talk to me a bit about Flashnet. Okay, maybe you can, where did you start and where you're at now?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, I think very simply, and this is still true today, we started Flashnet with the goal of, it's a very grandiose goal of kind of solving Bitcoin markets. So Bitcoin markets are, to me, the biggest problem in crypto. They trade, upwards of $30 trillion a year, and basically entirely through trusted custodial intermediaries. What's kind of happened is we've developed these silos of liquidity. So in the US, it's like Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken. In Asia, Binance. In Europe, it's a bunch of exchanges that peer with Binance. In Africa, it's Binance. And the rest of the industry has kind of moved forward. So you look at, Solana or Ethereum or all these Ethereum L2s, you can buy and sell these assets for, relatively cheaper than you can on any centralized exchange at this point, especially for like the Sol USD pairs on chain. So we set out to build a kind of similar thing for Bitcoin, this global pool of liquidity for the biggest asset in crypto. We started out on Lightning because we needed something fast and cheap. Like we got very nerd snapped by the idea of building a very high frequency trading network for Bitcoin on Lightning. The problem with Lightning is, there's a lot to talk about, is it doesn't really scale for non-custodial users. And there's a lot of people that are push back on this and say, hey, we can do this. You can have, an LSP, we can spin up nodes randomly. But the reality is like 99.999% of people don't give a shit. Like they're not gonna want to wait 30 seconds for a node to boot up to start doing anything. And then second is like the system we designed was correct, but entirely too complicated. Like there was way too many steps involved. Like just the latency itself to try and minimize trust would have ruined the system. But we tried to build it. So we tried to build it for a good amount of time. And then we took a step back. Kevin Hurley had the idea for Spark, shipped us the white paper, and we basically put everything else on pause to build a proof of concept, because it's exactly what we needed to build what we needed to build.
Yeah. Okay. So let's jump into Spark. So just for a bit of clarification, Flashnet is I guess we'll use kind of a nebulous term, like a market orchestrator. They build atop Spark. Now, let's talk a bit about Spark. Spark is a layer 2 construction. We're already going to get screeched at for saying layer 2, but my understanding is it kind of resembles state chains in a sense. But walk me through the most basic maybe explanation of Spark.
Yeah, I mean, it is based on state chains. So it is like a manifestation of a state chain. I guess the simplest way to describe Spark would be a signing protocol. You're signing off ownership of UTXOs on L1 to someone else, and then they can do the same to someone else, and the tree can continue growing. We can give it all the buzzwords. It's fast. There's 0 fees to transact on Spark today. There's pure unilateral exits to L1. And we say that there's one event trust assumptions. So as long as one of the operators is honest during the time of a transfer, you have perfect forward security.
Okay, and so but maybe talk about that a little bit more, because I always understood state chains as, so I don't know how familiar people are, but there's these things called open dimes, which are little USB looking sticks that you can sort of transfer Bitcoin in a way. You can do it hand to hand, right? And if it's sort of the seal's not broken, I mean, this is all making trust assumptions, but if the seal's not broken, then you know that nobody also has those keys to Bitcoin. Anyways, the point is it's like acoustic Bitcoin, basically. To me, state chains are sort of like a digital version of this acoustic Bitcoin, in that is as long as one operator deletes or does not have the key, then you are, assuming that you hold full custody of that Bitcoin. That is a trust assumption that people need to make. So like, walk me through a little bit more about like that construct and maybe also why you kind of like decided to go down that path.
Just very simply, Spark is a set of operators that will sign together with you to create a multisig. And then they'll do some fancy public key, private key arithmetic to shift their key so that the receiver that you send money to plus their new key is equal to your old key plus their old key. So then they can now sign off over the original UTXOs on chain. It's a threshold network. We have a set of operators, and that's why at least one of them needs to be honest to move forward. I think your example makes sense. I wouldn't say it's like handing someone a USB with like an uncracked
seal.
Like, there's a lot more we do in Spark to make sure that you're secure. I also think that, listen, the trust assumption you're making here is one that you can verify very simply. It's like if you have a completed signature over the leaves that you've just received, you can sequence those to L1 immediately. Like if you don't want the trust assumption of holding funds on Spark, you can very well verify that, you know, the funds have not been double spent. Like no one has spent the UTXO that you just received. It's very simple to do so.
Okay, good. That's enough technical stuff on that end. So then you said you put everything on hold with Lightning, which makes sense. Also, I'll give like a short anecdote. So I looked at the original Flashnet paper. It was a little bit over my head, but I understood the concept at the time. It was quite interesting because the premise was that Lightning is like at its core a routing network, right? And you have all these nodes like on the edge and then also through the middle, and you route stuff. And the idea was like if you could get a number of these edge nodes effectively to be market makers in a sense, and then also perhaps take on inventory for stablecoins or whatever assets you wanted. You could like design Lightning in a way that in its current form could act also as like a market. When I read this the first time, I had a lot of questions for you and your partner, and it was, I understand why you moved on. Now, what made Spark really appealing? What are the unlocks you get now with this kind of like state chain design that Lightning was simply not capable of providing, or was like far too complex and like in a way that just the user would never demand, which is like, I think a lot of what we're learning, right, is that if the user will never care about this, and why are we designing for that? So like what did Spark enable then?
Yeah, I mean, just a quick note on that. I think what we realized is that Lightning as a network cannot be multi-asset. And that's like one of the big assumptions we made going into this. And it was a very naive assumption. And it's because a lot of people around us made this assumption as well, is that like Lightning can scale for multi-asset. The reality is that we took years and years and years to make a single asset network work. And it's like not even at 100% payment efficiency yet. So markets necessitate efficiency. You can't have like a trade not go through because you have, you know, poor inbound or outbound liquidity and you have to wait for a block to replenish it. Like it doesn't work. So that's like number one, is that we made very false assumptions from the ground up. A channel-based network cannot support multi-asset, and it can't support high-frequency markets because of that. I think when Spark came in, the big eye-opener was that we didn't have any liquidity issues. Like there was no need to front liquidity. There was no need for someone to pre-fund channels and open channels and route. It is very much, it's more similar to an account model, which is much easier and nicer to work on than it is a channel-based network.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So then you started working on Flashnet. Like describe the design there. And I don't know if this is still the case. I should know. But at one point it was sort of, I'm trying to like make this more palatable for people who maybe aren't Bitcoin people, but like it's kind of an intense network. Is that correct? So yeah, like walk me through the design of Flashnet then.
Yeah. I mean, so today Flashnet sits on top of Spark as a quasi-execution layer. So we have a set of validators that each have a shard of a key. And this key controls what we call pools. So there's a bunch of different pools. There's a bunch of different shards for these pools. And then these pools today are just basically AMMs. So we have different types of AMMs, different curves. People can make their own quasi-implementations if they want. And then what happens is users will send funds to the pool. either to LP, where they incur longer standing risk because the validators could theoretically collude. And then people who swap against it are doing atomic swaps against the pool. The validators reach consensus about the next state. If they decide to move forward, they'll come together and sign off on funds moving.
Got it. Okay, so then in its current form, like mostly my understanding of Flashnet, and we kind of spoke about this before, just so I got some clarification, but it seems like more of a B2B thing, insofar that you're kind of in the background. Like, talk to me about that and maybe some of the integrations and partnerships you guys have, and like where you're providing liquidity and like where people are, using this really like for Bitcoin swaps.
Yeah, I mean, so the core focus of Flashnet today is BTC USD swaps, and that has surprisingly manifested in like a bunch of different, markets that we never thought we'd be in. So we work with a couple of different providers. We work with CoinFlow for merchant payments. So we're doing checkout for a bunch of different companies. We work with a lot of neobanks to do remittances. So we work with Bello, Ugly Cash, and a couple others in Latam. We work with a lot of wallets in the US. We're in Liquid Wallet to do on-ramps, for instance. And then there's a bunch of other providers that we work with just to do BTC swaps. So we'll do the cross-chain orchestration for them as well, but they'll like push in Solana USDC and we'll push out BTC. So it's manifested in many different ways. It's not just like trading anymore, but at the core of it, the engine is very much trading.
Okay, and so how do you distinguish, or maybe like where do you guys see Flashnet fitting in versus, I mean, we could extend to, like maybe we'll start with some of the more like Bitcoin focused L2s or applications. Like compare Spark. Yeah, maybe we'll go back to Spark for a second. Compare Spark with like Arc, some roll-ups, some of these like federations, but maybe like talk specifically there, because a lot of what they're doing is also providing swaps, right? Like, or like financial services. And now there's different trust assumptions taken on there, but like where do you So exactly. So like contrast this maybe with something like Arc or some of the L2s.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a user perspective, there is no difference. Like, it's a fucking Bitcoin wallet. You have Bitcoin, you spend it, right? Like, I don't think the average Joe who just wants to get Bitcoin exposure or wants a Bitcoin wallet is really going to care about the insides. Maybe that's like the non-Bitcoiner inside of me talking. But yeah, I think the end game for a lot of these networks is to support Bitcoin swaps. Like, it's a huge market. Like, we started powering BTC swaps for Trust Wallet recently, and the amount of flow these guys do just from and to Bitcoin is insane. It's like if you aggregate all of the non-custodial Bitcoin wallets and their Bitcoin trading, it's probably the size of like a decently sized centralized exchange. Just that market alone. So I do think the end game for them is to play in financial services, whether that's swaps or lending or derivatives, whatever it may be. And I think from the user perspective, it's just going to be a question of who has the best execution, who has the most distribution, and who's going to get in your face to actually get you to onboard to their product. I think the actual technical differences won't matter to these people.
Yeah, I think it's becoming increasingly clear. Like the technical differences are like it's only us nerds from a while ago that care about this stuff. When you say like Bitcoin USD swap, like just to clarify, where does that USD sit? So like is and also what form does it take? Like is it USDT? Is it Spark USD? Or you guys you have your own, you have a stable coin? Yeah. So like explain to me what the actual USD side of that is, and like is it a token or is it just like lines in a market maker's book? Like talk to me a little bit about that.
So we have a stable coin with a company called Braille, which is a regulated issuer in the US, called USD Bitcoin. We market make, and we have other market makers and other LPs that market make a BTC to USDB book. So that's a market on Flashnet. That's our main market today. USDB is then one-to-one redeemable with USDC on any network. So then we'll do the outbound or the inbound orchestration. So if you wanted to do like a ETH on Arbitrum to BTC on L1, what we'd do is we'd orchestrate ETH to Arbitrum to USDB, and then we'd do USDB to BTC, and then BTC would be pushed out on L1, on Lightning, on Spark, wherever you want it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, like and now zooming out a bit, how do you, I mean, I think a lot of us this past cycle have seen the ETFs. We've seen a lot of institutionalization. We've seen a lot of people buying Bitcoin, like maybe Bitcoin specifically here, like buying Bitcoin and they're not, owning the underlying Bitcoin in any real capacity.
Yep.
I was talking to, I've talked to a number of people about this now, Udi Wertheimer last week, but before that, Alex from River, is like general consensus view that more than likely Bitcoin self-custody is, on a perpetual downtrend, at least as a percentage of people who have, exposure to the Bitcoin price. Now, Bitcoin self-custody hopefully will be up from a nominal perspective, in that more people buying Bitcoin, some percentage of those people will want to self-custody.
Yep.
I guess maybe I would just ask, what are your overarching thoughts on this? And then how do you see Spark, Flashnet, where do you guys see yourselves fitting in? I mean, for somebody in LATAM, it maybe makes sense if they don't have good banking rails, if they don't have access to an exchange. I know some exchanges in countries where there's only one are taking egregious fees. So there would be a reason to use something like Spark. But for us in the United States, right, maybe we get on Hyperliquid and the execution's pretty good. Where do you see this kind of playing out? And where do you see just I don't know, maybe ownership of real Bitcoin going forward looking?
Yeah. Well, I think that the most interesting point here is our size as retail is not size. The reason that Bitcoin is becoming less non-custodial or self-custody is because these institutions are coming in with billions and billions of dollars. And that's a net good thing for the asset and the price. But those people are not going to self-custody their Bitcoin. A hedge fund sitting on $10 billion of BTC is not going to have their keys written down somewhere or have a multi-sig solution. They're going to go to Coinbase custody or one of these big custody solutions. So I think net, it's just the game is changing, and we just have to adapt. I think from a Flashnet Spark perspective, crypto is already starting to trend in the direction of on-chain execution of things. So we see inklings of this with Coinbase and other exchanges, where a lot of the execution you can find in the actual centralized product is coming from on-chain. A lot of the swaps that are happening on Coinbase today are actually coming from Aerodome on Base or whatever Prop AMMs on Base. It's mostly fueled by meme coin stuff today, but you can very quickly see how this extends outwards, right? If I'm Coinbase and I have this free distribution, and then I don't have to do any of this market maker bullshit because on-chain users are doing it for me, I'd much rather the latter. If I can take a lot of things off my plate, I will. So I think for us, we see the market in tranches at Flashnet. It's the first tranche is strictly retail. It's how can we win non-custodial users? It's a decently sized market, but it's not a multi-billion-dollar a day market, right? So that's cross-chain swaps, merchants, remittances, payments, general buying and selling. I think tranche 2 is traders. I think that's where Hyperliquid is today. I love Hyperliquid. I think it's a great product. I think that's where they are today. It's they are hosting actual traders doing, hedging, arbitrage, taking directional bets on the daily. That's the next tranche for us. It's how can we support those traders for BTC? And then the third tranche is going after these big centralized products. So the dream is very simply River, Cash App, Coinbase, all of these big products would tap into Flashnet liquidity because execution, fees, and speed is better than whatever they can do in-house.
Let me take a moment to talk to you about Ellipsis Labs, a team I've known for a while. The Ellipsis team is one of the few that I can consistently point to and say, these guys really know what they're doing. Ellipsis Labs brought capital-efficient order books to Solana and started the Prop AMM revolution with SolFi. Altogether, they've saved retail traders tens of millions of dollars by reducing slippage on spot markets. They're bringing the same level of expertise to perpetuals with Phoenix, which is live today. Ellipsis Labs is backed by Paradigm, Electric Capital, and Han Ventures. I would consider them the foremost experts in crypto market microstructure. The best part is that Ellipsis Labs is hiring for New York-based engineers. Work with a small, focused team who are results-driven, collaborative, and use a modern stack. If you're an engineer looking to work with a DeFi team that's already proven itself in the market, go to ellipsislabs.com/careers. What are some of the challenges you've run into with building elite execution, let's call it, on top of Spark? Obviously so I remember with the Lightning thing I was alluding to earlier, there was, the way it was designed was at at some juncture, these like edge nodes kind of had this like free option problem, and that's something that comes up a lot in trading just in general, right? But there's other issues with latency and like what spreads you can realistically charge and whatnot. What are some of those problems that you've encountered or have been able to work with now with like a better designed sort of signing protocol, right, as you call Spark?
I think it's kind of stretched beyond a technical problem to like an economic / incentives problem. I think, again, we were very naive when we started this to think that because we designed the best way to mitigate the free option problem on Lightning, people will come. The reality is, like, liquidity is not going to come unless they can make money. And volume's not going to come unless they can get good execution. So you need to subsidize one half. Like, you need to subsidize one side of the market. It's a cold start problem. For us, we're starting to see a massive amount of demand, and we're the primary LP in Flashnet. We're trying our best to give you the best execution we can. But there's a point at which that completely inverts, right? And then we don't need to be the LP anymore, because then it's okay. Like, LPs have enough alpha to gain from trading against our distribution. So that's when it inverts. I think from our perspective, it's really not a technical challenge anymore. I don't think Spark necessarily would have solved that problem or not. I think it's just a strategy issue, if anything. Like, how we're going about it and what we're doing to solve these problems has changed drastically.
What do you make then of what? Well, for example, Lightning. You worked on Lightning for a while. You saw how complicated it was, but then also we now see Arc. We saw a number of layer 2s with varying degrees of success come up, Bitcoin specific L2s. What do you make of sort of like the landscape? I mean, you guys have chosen Spark, obviously. You think it's like best suited, but like Lightning, for example, or Arc, like where do you see those going in? Do those still fit in? I know Spark, for example, is still like easily integrated with Lightning. I don't know how exactly that works in practice, but like where do you see those going? Like solving different use cases, or dwindling in demand over the long run?
Yeah. And putting my Spark hat on, that was our first market. Like, that's the first market we won, was non-custodial Lightning. So Lightning on Spark is an atomic swap between Spark Bitcoin and Lightning Bitcoin through a service provider. And that was the first big win for us. Like, Wallet of Satoshi runs on Spark. Cake Wallet runs on Spark. Nice. Blitz runs on Spark. Like, there's countless wallets that have integrated Spark just for Lightning. And then are all kind of slowly starting to integrate Flashnet and funding with other currencies to get BTC swaps and all these things. So I'd say like Lightning is the best wedge for these things, because for Bitcoiners, at least, it was a big pinpoint for a really long time. It's like we wanted to be able to support Lightning, but the non-custodial infra isn't there. Wallet of Satoshi had to literally shut down and stop operating in the US because of it until Spark came around. So that was very much the first market.
Yeah. I think like part of the problem with Lightning also, I mean, they got a lot of criticism from people outside of Bitcoin, right? Like, they talk about how complicated and useless Lightning was. And I mean, it's fair, but I think that also the biggest problem, like by some order of magnitude, was that there was just not that much demand for a high velocity payment network that really only worked with Bitcoin specifically. Like, there was these like liquidity problems and opening and closing channels, like all of these like sort of niche weird problems that you have like working with like a routing network like this. But the main issue was that for the first, 15 years or almost 15 years of Bitcoin's life, right? Like, we've gone over a decade now, and like there's just not that much demand to pay in Bitcoin. So there is demand, though, seemingly to pay with like stablecoins and stuff. I think that's what like Spark is tackling. Where do you see that playing out? And then also, I mean, USDC on Solana is quite good. Like, how do you see Spark compete? Yeah.
This is the thing that's hard to reconcile. It's like, if you've used Solana, it's hard to reconcile why you need to reinvent the wheel. It's just like so fucking good. It's fast, it's cheap, everything works, it's composable. I think what's interesting is that Bitcoin, the real thing that stands out about Bitcoin is it's just credibly neutral. Like, there is no Tolly or foundation behind Bitcoin. Right. There is no incentives to go one way or another. I think Bitcoin as the network will increasingly be used for different applications. And the second bit is Bitcoin itself as an asset has incredibly deep liquidity in basically every corridor. So whether you're trying to do on and off ramps, whether you're trying to trade it against any asset, Bitcoin has basically the best liquidity profile of any asset in crypto. So I think those two things, at least for a lot of players, make it very valuable as a payments network. I mean, we see Block taking heavy bets on this and enabling Lightning at basically every merchant in the US. What that then enables is companies like Flashnet to come in and say, hey, do you want to pay with a stablecoin at a Block terminal or Square terminal? We'll do the just-in-time swap to BTC, and then Block will do the just-in-time BTC to fiat swap on the other side of the merchant. Like, will Bitcoin scale for payments necessarily? I think invisibly, yes. I think on the front end, it'll be stablecoins. Like, people don't want to have a floating balance; they want to have flat.
Yeah, where do you see stablecoins going? Like, I'm actually probably a little bit more bearish than I was, and I'm kind of bearish stablecoins for Americans and like DoorDash. But what'd you say?
We're too spoiled in the U.S.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But it's not to say that it can't be useful, but I don't know how to think about stablecoins at this point. Also, I think the other reason, and people like have mentioned this a lot now, is that a lot of the like infra or builders in the stablecoin, whatever neobank space, like a lot of people don't have access to those opportunities, right? Like it's like Tempo was not really like this, airdrop farmed round. You know what I mean? It's like more serious people doing it now. So I think that's also why a lot of retail's like, I don't care about stablecoins, right? But like, where do you see, I don't know, maybe like 5-10 years out, like where do you see stablecoins being useful? And then also maybe where do you see them like not playing such a huge role? Like, for example, in the United States where we're spoiled with Venmo, like it's hard to imagine like me really needing to pay my friend with stablecoins. Although maybe, who knows?
I don't think you'll see it. Like, I don't think there needs to be like mass education on stablecoins. I think at the end of the day, this is an opportunity for financial businesses to own their own ledger. And there's a very high incentive to do so. Like if you own your stablecoin and you have participants on your network, you make the money. You're not renting someone else's network, right? You're not renting Visa or MasterCard or Fedwire or other people's rails. You own the rails. So I think that's the incentive for financial companies. I don't think the end user will know. Like, I think it'll just be invisible. I think money will flow more fluidly. If you need to send money to somewhere, it'll get routed through stablecoins if it makes sense to route through stablecoins. Otherwise, it'll just be like same old USD. You won't see a thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I also don't, I think like when you say USD, I think that all of these, like, you're not going to see USDT, USDC, and then like 100 different, Visa stablecoin, blah, blah. It's all just going to be reconciled into like, this is the dollars you have. And hopefully we figure it out such that on the back end, there's no like massive risk premium, like, or like some risk profile we don't understand with.
Cash App did this really, really well, by the way. Like the stablecoin feature they rolled out was so fucking good. It's like you have one cash balance and all they're enabling you to do is send to a bunch of different networks. So they're enabling addressing schemes and receive from a bunch of different networks. It all combines into one cash balance. You can go from fiat to stablecoin. You can go from stablecoin to fiat. And it's just simple. Like, the user doesn't have to know. Someone could just say like, yo, send me your Solana address and you're done.
Yeah, I think even like the idea of a Solana address is going to be sort of outdated. I think it'll just be our cash tag or like same as Venmo in a few years, right? Like, I don't think people working with these like strings of letters and numbers is going to persist. Like, it overcomplicates things, and like any type of UI you use should be able to determine like what network or address. Go ahead.
Yes, but it is shorter than a fucking like account number and routing number.
Oh, that's very true. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, and also like the address of the bank you're sending to, like that is the most insane thing to have to like find, like pay somebody in another country, and you're trying to find. Like, I don't even know how the formatting of some bank in France works. Yeah, so I mean those are like very obvious unlocks. But okay, so then like what about with regards to other assets? You say that like BTC USD is like your obviously primary pool right now, and like where you're seeing a lot of the volume. Do you think that, so like what other assets are in demand? I guess also this is kind of relevant to Spark as a whole, as it like tries to take on more parts of, like, I don't know, the financial system at large.
I mean, so surprisingly, and this ties into the stablecoin discussion, is I don't think we're like the premier market simply because our biggest route today is USDT on Tron. Like that is by far in between the biggest route we see coming from non-custodial wallets is USDT on Tron. And that's not like the first, I guess like it's not the first stablecoin I would expect someone in the US to have.
Right.
So from our perspective, I don't think we're the first stablecoin users or the biggest at all. I think it is a lot of hype. We do a lot of BTC to ETH. That's a big pair as well. But I'd say the vast majority of volume is BTC to stablecoin, and to that Tron.
How does the BTC to ETH work? Like, what is the flow there? Like, say I start like
USDC on ETH swap.
Okay, so like if you could start on like what networks is this like compatible
Everything.
with? So I could start on Arbitrum, and what kind of fees are there? Like in like for example, say I wanted to swap ETH to L1 BTC. Like what is the different people along the way? Like what are the different sort of makers?
Landed for you as a consumer, it'll be around 10 bips, 10 to 15 bips, depending on what network it's coming from. So it's very competitive. What we do like on ingress and egress is we'll coordinate the best liquidity to do an ETH to USD swap. And then the last hop will be a USD to BTC swap. And very often that's much more competitive than a direct ETH to BTC swap, just because our BTC to USD execution is faster and far better than anything else on chain.
What do you see as the future of cross-chain, like maybe outside of Bitcoin specifically? Like, do you think that
Ellipsis is crushing it?
Why is that though?
Money. They have deep pockets, a lot of liquidity. I mean, we see daily like demand for like $5 to $10 million swaps that we can't like. We don't have the capacity to fill that today.
Shout out to market makers out there. Hopefully they'll get in touch.
Yeah, Suanoi, we're in conversations. But like like people are single clipping like $multi-million swaps on near intents. It's pretty crazy.
From what to what? It's a lot of Zcash stuff.
Bitcoin. It's a lot of Zcash stuff. It's a lot of Bitcoin stuff. I mean, I'd say Bitcoin is their premier route. I think something that they're getting wrong, or maybe it's not wrong, it's just a different architecture that we've done dramatically differently, is that we're not becoming this kind of like asset wrapping solver network. We've developed a system in-house to very efficiently route cross-chain and buy and sell liquidity from on-chain. It's like we don't need to hold $20 million in ETH like the near intents folks do. We just find someone who wants to sell $20 million in ETH on chain, and then we could just do it.
Everyone.
Yeah, literally.
But go ahead.
It's just a different architecture. Like their architecture is very much inventory based. Ours is a monolith where the only inventory that any LP holds is BTC and USD. And then we can orchestrate everything else. Like if someone wanted to do a BTC ETH swap on near intents, someone has to be holding BTC and ETH on near intents. Someone wanted to be doing a BTC ETH swap on Flashnet, it'd be BTC USD USD ETH. No ETH is ever held by anyone on Flashnet.
So where is that, like, just out of curiosity, do you know where that, like, for example, somebody wants to swap $5 million they're doing it through near intents, like, where is that originating from? And also, is the wallet directing, like, there's not like a near intent like UI, is there?
Yep, near.com.
Okay, is that what people are using? So, like, are people going directly to that? Interesting.
So we work with a bunch of different providers. One of our great partners is SwapKit. They're an aggregator. They work very closely with near intents as well. SwapKit runs tens of millions of dollars through near intents a day. Near.com does another tens of millions of dollars. I mean, near intents itself is over the last couple of days has been like trending towards $100 million of daily volume.
Yeah, and that's real volume. It's not like perps volume.
It's like real spot.
Yeah. But on that note, like, do you see, like, what do you make of then? You kind of mentioned this, like going after markets, but like perps and derivatives. Obviously, that's like derivatives markets do more trading than spot and Bitcoin,
Yep.
right? Like, so we see now. We'll see if that, like, in the future, if that's the case. I mean, obviously, it's like the first 10 years of Bitcoin and crypto has been quite speculative, so it makes sense. But what do you see any like ability to do derivatives, that type of thing, or are you like strictly focused on spot?
Yep. So like we'll share more on this in a couple of weeks here, or in a few weeks here. Flashnet is going to start being used for liquidations and other derivative loan-like products. I think from a perps perspective, we're just not competitive. To me, it's a perfectly competitive market. It settles in USD. There's no point building infrastructure on Bitcoin to do perps. And then it's just a markets game. Like I do not have the willpower to go up against Hyperliquid and try to beat those incentives today.
And Binance, yeah. Well, I mean, also, like, you have to, this is just something that is obviously becoming increasingly clear. You have to understand, like, the end user there, which, first of all, it's like a perp at a practical level is like an Oracle price. So it's not the real underlying. And then also there's the trust assumptions that people take they're fine with them, right? Like, unit, like their Bitcoin bridge is like people. And I was talking with Tarun about this, right? Say that again. Sorry.
Like upwards in $200 million of BTCs in there.
Yeah, I mean, like, people are totally fine with it. I mean, and it is what it is. Is it like you can make a good argument that it's like safer there than on Binance, right? Like, we don't. So I don't know. I'm just pointing out that there are. It's like a 2 or 3 multi-sig, I think, effectively. I hope Shoku doesn't yell at me, but yeah, like the fact of the matter is but people are fine taking that. So you have to look at the market and see what people are, like, the direction people are going. And so I definitely, that makes sense. But so, like, just, I know you said you'll announce more in a few weeks, but like, what do you mean exactly when you say used for liquidations? Like, how does that work in practice? Like, just the high level.
I mean, people are lending out their BTC. If they hit liquidations, the underlying asset needs to be swapped back.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That makes sense. Like a very simple answer, but I didn't know exactly what you meant there. So then it seems like going off that kind of point about like perps and derivatives, like what other areas do you think that are ripe for the picking in terms of like being able to integrate either Flashnet or Spark Bitcoin into, like, where is there obvious, areas that people want to use real Bitcoin in this scenario, like maybe slightly more trusted, but like still closer on the spectrum to real Bitcoin than like something like wrap Bitcoin? Where do you see like other areas that people want that type of product?
I think lending is the most clear one. And listen, it's something we're watching very closely. We have the capacity to do lending on Flashnet. I mean, it's kind of like an open execution layer. We can build basically whatever we want on top of our rails. But for us, it's very much about our mental model here is we need to win spot to be able to do anything else. Like, we need a very liquid and great executing spot market to be able to do anything else. So if someone wants to build lending on Flashnet, they can do it once we have, the proper spot distribution to do so. But yeah, I think lending is the golden goose of Bitcoin. I mean, the last 2 years, it's been all the hype, and for the right reasons. So yeah, I think lending's next.
Yeah, lending, I think in the future, certainly. I think now it's kind of like an awkward transition phase where in many ways we want Bitcoin to be this like seeing collateral, but then we have these events like 1010, and it's unfortunate because it's very hard to convince the next user that we want to onboard to like view this as collateral the way they would view like a home equity line of credit as collateral, right? And then the market oscillates like 10-20% in a day, and it still unfortunately has this like risk attached. So I mean, I think certainly in the future, if Bitcoin continues on a trajectory, this is like a very, very obvious like use case that we'll see a lot of demand. But for the time being, it's just like hard. Like I almost kind of like not walk back, but like I'm a lot more reluctant to kind of recommend Bitcoin lending. Well, unless, I mean, if you have like 1,000 Bitcoin, then I'm like, yeah, like take out a $2 million loan. Like, I mean, you know what you're doing at this point. You've held Bitcoin for a very long time. You understand the asset profile. But like, I'm not going to tell somebody with like 1 Bitcoin to take out like a $30,000 loan. You know what I mean? And I think it's like,
I don't think that's the market today. I think the market is like, there is a lot of people that became very rich because of Bitcoin or thanks to Bitcoin. And I think there's a lot of people in that population that don't want to sell their Bitcoin, but need some sort of cash to live. Like you can't, you can't expect someone who has like a $50 million to $100 million bag just to like never sell. It's not going to happen. But they want exposure. Like they don't want to move on yet, which is why it will be so big.
Like I know anecdotally, like firsthand, that is exactly the user. Like that is the primary target right now is like whales. It's not, and also the reason that I say that too is because like there's people who bought like a relatively large amount, let's call it like last cycle. They may hold like, you know, a few million in Bitcoin, and those people I guess what I'm saying is like I still don't really think that lending is a great idea for them. It truly is like the whales. You're right. Like those are the people that I think
if you're up more than 100%, then you should think about it.
Right.
So then you can think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I tend to agree. I guess the one last thing I'd say on that is that I do wonder where Bitcoin lending fits in the long run. I had this conversation with Udi. Like, if you buy IBIT, Schwab and Robinhood, like they're quite good at giving like very competitive margin loans. So I don't know where it kind of fits in the long run. Yeah. So we'll see with that.
I think that the problem is also like the Bitcoin lending companies that have come out today have been very focused on like it needs to be trustless and all these things, which I think is important for a lot of the user base they're going after maybe. But like you can't compete against exactly what you're saying. You can't compete against like Goldman or Charles Schwab or whatever. Like any of these players, you're not going to compete with them. So I don't know. We'll see. I think Bitcoin lending will be big. What that looks like, I don't know.
Yeah. What is I kind of asked you this, but like, what is Spark focused on now? Like, just not so much Flashnet, but like, where is Spark trying to make inroads? I see, like, so I followed early on this like UMA thing, right? Which I think kind of like I don't know, is that still like, just for a second, like, is that still in the works, or have you kind of like moved on from that? Was that more like the Lightning thing?
That's more of like a Light Spark product.
Okay.
Light Spark is going heavily in the direction of like just any-to-any orchestration. So they can now, push and pull funds from countless countries and help neobanks and financial products really integrate with any stack in the matter of hours instead of, getting licenses, having to build their own stack. So the thought is basically a neobank in a box. You can use Lightspark Grid to operate in basically every country, be compliant, and then touch every endpoint, whether that's Bitcoin, stablecoins, fiat. You can do it all.
Yeah. And then I asked you this before, but I didn't fully get to like finish this. We were talking about, ETH to BTC swaps and like how that's done. Do you see, probably there's not a tremendous amount of demand for this right now, but I've talked to my friend Alex from ARK, and we've long hoped for equity markets denominated in Bitcoin. Again, I don't think there's like tremendous demand for this right now, especially with perps and like USDC if you're going to go down the crypto route. But in the long run, I think it's like an interesting idea, especially as more stocks and just other assets trade permissionlessly or more permissionlessly or opened up to the rest of the world. What do you think about like these type of assets going forward? When we see Hyperliquid, a lot of the demand now is on equities, right? So I'm interested to know if like there will be Bitcoin pairs, or like your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, the trade.xyz people are fucking crushing it.
Yeah.
Like hats off to them. Lots of SpaceX betting going on. Listen, I think all these IPOs are going to mint a lot of millionaires, maybe a couple billionaires, and I think a lot of these people will want to put money into Bitcoin. I think that's what their financial advisors are going to tell them to do. I think a lot of them are young and want to do that. They're not going to be boring and put it into like an IRA or a mutual fund. It's not going to happen. I have a friend named Borja who's building a company called Roxom.
Yeah. That's exactly what I think Alex and I were like discussing early on. This was his idea, right? Like,
it's BTC denominated perps. So instead of settling in USD, they settle in BTC.
What do you make of that? Like, it seems like that adds a lot of volatility on both sides. But people maybe in the future,
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's interesting for certain assets. Like a lot of their successes come from Stretch.
Yes,
they've been able to take STRC and build a bunch of financial products around there. I think for those types of markets, it makes a lot of sense. Would I like long or short SpaceX with Bitcoin as the kind of denomination?
Right.
I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I wouldn't even know how to think about that. Yeah. I think that it is interesting though. Like one thing you were talking about Cash App earlier, and I think that Jack is a true believer. Deep down, he is a true believer, and I do think it is interesting to like that's a company that's like this is what we're going to do. If there's no demand right now, so be it. We're going to build it out. Like everyone is going to be able to pay in Bitcoin, and I think that this is quite interesting. Like I think it's more interesting than people give credit for, right? Because like right now there is not that much demand to go and like to a gas station and pay with Bitcoin, but the fact that this, you have a company and actually a pretty successful company. Like, Cash App's certainly successful, right?
It's like 60 million monthly actives.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of other like kind of just like endeavors, but regardless, Cash App is a household name, and they're saying like, look, we're going to do this. I think it is interesting, and I think that it will become increasingly like apparent that some of these companies that chose early on to like make Bitcoin a focal point will like do quite well and help if assuming that Bitcoin does well.
I think Miles Sutter from Block also deserves a lot of credit here. Cash App, a lot of Cash App's revenue is like Bitcoin denominated. It's like Bitcoin trading, Bitcoin, payments, all this stuff is making up a non-zero amount of Bitcoin of Cash App's balance sheet, or like revenue, I should say. I think it takes a big mover to be forward looking and to make a bet that's contrarian. Bitcoin as a payments network, in the grander scheme of things, outside of our echo chamber, is incredibly contrarian, and they went all in. And I think, listen, it'll pay off for them in the form of BTC trading on Cash App, in the form of BTC adoption worldwide. So I'm all there for it. I'll support them however I can. I mean, we're constantly trying to build out products next to the Cash App team with Cash App. So it's going to be awesome. I love those guys.
Yeah. Okay, last thing. Does Flashnet have a like retail UI?
Not yet.
Okay.
So it'll come in the coming months. We're again, I don't want to share too much yet. We're coming out with a Flashnet V2 soon, which for all our partners will not change anything, but for us will make us more flexible and competitive on how we build our products. So better trust assumptions, faster, more soon.
Yeah, and I think that this is kind of like evidence of like you kind of are a little bit under the radar, and why I wanted to give you, I don't know, maybe it's just showing my bags, I guess, right? But also I wanted to show like some exposure because I don't think people are very familiar with what you're doing, because you have been like mainly behind the scenes, but it's interesting like how many integrations and how much kind of behind the scenes stuff you guys are doing. Like a lot of people wouldn't even know, right? So
CT noise does not equal success.
Yeah, well, that is like very clearly true this cycle too. You guys have never been like super CT focused, and
thank God.
Yeah, I am in agreement just in general with like companies, right? Like it very much has changed, such that being front and center or like airdrop centric has not really paid off this cycle, and I think it'll pay off less and less going forward, right?
Meta's dead.
Yeah. Okay, well, where can people find you if they want to find you or are interested in using Flashnet or becoming a market maker in the future, or maybe if you're hiring? Yeah.
Flashnet.xyz, all the things. If you need orchestration, cross-chain swaps, Bitcoin deposits, payments, remittances, whatever you need, one-stop shop.
Awesome. Okay, Ethan, I look forward to following you guys' progress. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.